All right. Thanks so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as you know, basically for Business Future Reengineering, we're interviewing founders, business owners that have sort of been through crisis or multiple crisis, and also that run businesses that we like really connect with, and the people like our audience really connect with. So
Yeah.
as you know, the first guide that we're building is for like retail service-based industry. So that's
Yeah.
what you guys do at Olympia.
Yeah.
And the gist of this convo is like, I'm keen to just hear about how you guys started and how you developed, and really like the whole background and the whole idea around BFR is we go under the hood and we go nitty gritty. So like
Yeah,
our
cool.
guides, nothing's hidden at all. I literally
Yeah.
write my thought patterns on paper so people can see
Yeah.
the absolute long division. So if you've had some interesting run-ins with people, or, you know, particularly like your time surviving through COVID, which clearly you have, you're sitting in your gym now.
Yeah.
Really keen to just hear like as much as you're willing to divulge, really.
For sure. Look, we're pretty transparent, as you know, being in the Olympia member in the Olympia family. When things are happening here around the club, we're always open and transparent to not only our team, and we've got 14 full-time employees now. So not only the team, but also the members as well. And I think that's based on the culture. If people have an investment in what you're doing and they're invested in it, then there's a lot more likely that, you know, they'll believe in you and they'll support you through it.
And support through it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, people have asked me before about Olympia, and I spoke like the major points that I make as to why you guys are different, because people ask me as well, like about the cost, like how much you guys charge. I mean, it's a lot more than a Snap Fitness, for example.
Heaps more, yeah.
And I speak volumes about like the quality of the gym, etc., but mostly about the culture and the involvement you guys have, and then the quality of the trainers, right? So a lot of the guys that you've got, like Matt or Kenny, for example, are the best there are in what they do. And I reckon that's a really interesting pull, but we can get into that later. I'm keen to start like at the start.
From the beginning?
So you must have done some sort of personal training course or something. Maybe you met Cleo
exactly.
there. I'm keen.
We did actually. Like, I'll take it from the beginning. So, like you just said, I did a personal training course, but I actually ended up working for that company for the personal training education company. It's called the Max International College for fitness professionals. And literally 8 weeks within my course, I hadn't even finished the course yet. I applied to work there. You know, the owners of the company, Kerry McAvoy and Rowena McAvoy.
Did Max come before or after AIF?
It became after. So there was a transition from AIF. So initially I was working for AIF, and then that transitioned to working for Max. But look, it's probably really relevant that I bring up me starting my career there, because it wasn't just the job itself of working in fitness education that helped me so much. Even more than that, it was the likes of Kerry and Rowena as, say, mentors, as you'd call it. To watch them run their business so successfully has really set a standard for how we run our business. So I think that, like, I was there for around 12 years in the end. So quite a stint. I started when I was 18 for the company, and you know, obviously achieved some great things through there. But more than anything, it was the knowledge that came from working there. So that's where I started.
I went to AIF as well. I didn't last long as a trainer because I've got very small patience, as you may know. But I remember the culture and the way that those guys train, and it reminds me enormously of what you guys are kind of like at Olympia, right? I mean, I recognize that instantly. I didn't know you then, but I recognize that instantly.
And it is a way of living, I think. Like, you know, there's positive vibes every time you come in, but I didn't invent that, to be completely honest, and neither did Cleo. Like, that was a culture we were brought up in, and we thought, holy, you know, it's actually, can I swear on this?
Fuck
Can I swear on this? We're like, fuck, you know, holy shit. Like, it's actually possible to have a great day, you know, every day, because that's the culture we're in. There's challenging days, but you know, you look at a win. What's the win out of it? So that's where I started. And I learned. I was more in the sales side of the business, and also the management side for a long time there. So I managed a lot of the team, which again, like just as you would know, sales and management, when you have your own business, they're two fundamentals for having that. So Cleo actually had done our AIF course, but it was in Sydney, right? Mm-hmm. And then she came to the Queensland College years and years later, which are owned by different owners, to upgrade to the business course, because she'd learnt the fitness, she was personal training people, and now she wanted to do the business side of the program. And you hit the nail on the head. That's actually where Cleo and I met, which was awesome. So she was a student. Obviously, I waited until she finished her program. So I was a very good boy.
Yeah, I bet you did.
and then that attraction happened within the program, and then we got together after that. Yeah. And it was funny because there was two things that really, I suppose, created Olympia. Initially, it was more so Cleo's vision than mine, because Cleo was working as a personal trainer in Brisbane City. I think she'd worked for Fitness First, Good Life, a couple of private studios. I think it was 4 or 5 places in the city. And she kept going from place to place because how things were run really irritated her. Now, I'm working at the college for, it would have been...
Do you have insights, like what does how places are run really irritate her mean?
Yeah, so like the last final straw... Yeah, so the last final straw at the place she was working at was the cleanliness. So the towels were in the towel bins for, days. If there was, if you'd go and have a shower, you'd be like, oh, like Cleo is a super clean person, so am I. So the overall cleanliness was irritating. Also, there was a fairly big disconnect from ownership or management to the team. It's pretty much like what the industry is, as you know, is more often than not, like 99.9% of the time, it's a gym owner or big corporation. Then they have trainers that work there, they pay rent. So you've got trainers who are their own business. You've got the gym that's their own business. And then there's a massive disconnect. Totally. So I think that's...
They don't really care, right? And they're just banking. They're probably mostly banking on people that pay money every week but never show up. So that like actually they have a gym capacity, but most of them are just trying to sell as much as they can. But like they could go 100% over capacity, but none of those people ever turn up anyway. And they just keep it because they're like, yeah, well, I've got a gym membership, so I'm kind of like staying fit, or my mind is or something. And they just leave it. Yeah. Surely that's what they're banking on.
Oh, I mean, look, I've never worked for a commercial gym, but it's just a different business model. Yeah. Obviously, if all of their members showed up, that'd be fucked, right? Yeah. You have 5,000 members in 1,000 square meters, and they all show up. Like it's going to be carnage. So yeah, you're right. Like that would happen. But I suppose what I saw from my end as working at the college and teaching a lot of students, and then going through the program, and then going out in the industry, I saw all these faults, like the cleanliness, the trainers and their short lifespan if they weren't looked after properly. The ones that were actually doing really well, because there were trainers going from the college that were absolutely killing it, and then there were other trainers that weren't. So I was looking from that side, and then Cleo was more in the trenches, and she was going from place to place where she was finding these faults. And the other thing is, and this is probably a really big part of it, let's say, for example, there's a trainer, right? They're a subcontractor. And based on all the anatomy and physiology that you are watching them in a personal training session, and you're thinking to yourself, that's wrong. Like
so wrong.
The way they're doing their technique, or just not even going like super in depth, like advanced, cutting edge. This is the newest thing, just like a basic lat pull down, right? And you can see that's not right. No. Well, what really irritated Cleo was the gym owner or management or whatever wouldn't say anything to the trainer, because they just let it go, because ultimately the trainer pays rent. So then Cleo's thinking, I'm wearing this badge, working for another gym.
People think I'm the same. Yeah.
This is it. So that really irritated Cleo a lot.
Yeah.
And obviously we had a lot of feedback from our students when I worked from the college at the time saying, look, I've got to leave this place because from what I've been taught, it's completely contradicting what I believe in. So in a nutshell, Cleo was watching all of this, unfold. I'm getting feedback from the students, seeing that unfold. And Cleo says, look, I'm going to do my own thing. It was in her vision, hence why she did the business
school. It's inevitable with all the good trainers anyway, isn't it? If you treat them like shit, it's terrible quality. They're going to leave. They're going to do their own thing.
That's exactly right. So like I said earlier, it was initially Cleo's vision. She was actually going to do it with a friend at the time. That didn't quite happen. And I still remember we were driving like where you merge onto the highway to go to the Gold Coast. Like I remember I picked her up from work or something. We're driving along that road and the friend Cleo wasn't going to do it with, it wasn't happening. And Cleo had found a site and she says, look, it's not happening. I said, look, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is you do it. And if you need help, I'll come and do 10 sessions a week, 20 sessions a week, and we'll cover costs. Like the worst case scenario is it's a 3-year lease, you do it, I'll make sure it survives, even though it's going to be your thing. And fuck, we'll figure it out, right? So I think, like I said, her vision, but in a way, me in the background, and Olympia was born. It was actually in a really weird place. It was actually in like a unit, site. Like the original site was on George Street. It was 164 square meters, and it was like this weird dinky, like it was a weird like out. Do you know where the Grosvenor is, the strip club where it was on the corner?
Yeah.
And then you've got then you've got the Tribal Theatre.
That's the worst spot.
And then you've got the BWS. Yeah. So it was in an alleyway next to the BWS, and you walked in the alleyway, you walked up the stairs. But again, to Cleo's credit and Cleo's mum's Donna, their family actually owned an interior design business. Cleo's dad's passed away now, but he was really the brains of the operation and the super creative when it came to interior design. And Donna, Cleo's mum, is a genius at it as well. But Cleo, growing up with that, has a huge eye for design and making things like beautiful.
A destination, right?
This is it, Job. Yeah. So even though it was a weird site, it was actually beautiful. Like you'd walk down this alley, you walked up the stairs, and it looked incredible. Like really beautiful boutique studio. So I probably came more into the mix after about a year. I started injecting myself more in the business. We saw some potential there, and within 3 years, which was the initial lease, 3 years with a 3-year option on that last year, I was pretty heavily involved. And we had a choice, which was we can either stay there, like it was bursting out of the seams. It really was, like it was quite tight. So we knew we were running a profitable little business in there that was going to be successful, but we had the option to exercise another 3-year option, and we thought, fuck it, like, we feel there's a lot more potential in this. Yeah. Let's upgrade in a nutshell. So which was a massive decision for us at the time, by the way, because you've already got like this golden goose laying eggs.
I want to talk about that decision, but I've got a more important question, actually.
Okay, go.
Which is one of the number one rules a lot of us are taught about business is to never do business with friends or family. And I believe that super heavily. How do you find operating with your wife a business?
That's a good question.
I couldn't do it. So, no way in hell.
Yeah. Again, right? You know how I mentioned Kerry and Roe before, and they own the college?
Yeah.
Well, to this day, like, they're a couple of my best friends. Like not only were they business mentors, but they're actually incredibly great friends of mine. So when I'd go to New Zealand and I'd stay at their home, I was fortunate enough to live with them at days at a time, etc. I would actually, not thinking about it then, but looking back now, I would witness what it was like to run a multi-million-dollar thriving business with a husband and a wife, right? So I don't think I would be how I am with Cleo if I didn't go through 12 years of learning how to do it with a super successful husband and wife that pretty much subconsciously laid the standard on how to have an epic relationship and an epic business. So like so many other things, it was probably taught to me subconsciously.
Yeah. So
crazy, hey?
That is crazy, and I would never suggest it to anybody. But for example, when you get home, what do you talk about? And if there's something going at work, how do you split, I don't know, emotions between work and personal?
So it probably has to go back earlier than that, because something that like I've lived by for as long as I can remember is having your own core values and your own beliefs. And part of Cleo and I coming together, I think it was our first or second date, where literally we went through our core values. She was just learning it in the course. I already knew mine. I'd come out of a long-term relationship. Like, I knew I didn't want a girl that if I was home 3 hours later than I said, would, where have you been? Where have you been? I literally said to Cleo, if you ever say that to me, this is over. And I said, look, I don't want kids. That's something I was upfront about. Literally, this is the first, second date. I think it might have been the first. And I was like, look, something else you got to know with me. I don't want children. I never will want children. If there's any inkling in you that wants children, like, we can have some fun, but this will never be a long-term relationship. So we had this, she was the same, mate.
Brutal
and we had this, it was brutal. Like, it was great chat because so many things lined up, but I made a commitment to myself because I came out of a reasonably long relationship, like, as you know, high school sweetheart, 5 years or so. And I made a commitment to myself. I will be single for the rest of my life unless I find someone that matches up with these values, right? And then I had my 9 non-negotiables on the relationship. And I literally had my list. Yeah, 100%. And I said, this is it. This is it.
To the date?
I knew them off by heart. Like, I didn't need paper. So, and literally I went through it. There's no negotiating, blah, blah, blah. At the end of that date, it was like terrible food, but the date was awesome. And I said to Cleo, look, I'm running late for an indoor soccer game back on the Gold Coast because we're in Brisbane at the time. I got to go. I got to like get back to the Gold Coast to play this game, right? And what I'm used to when I make a comment like that in my previous relationship is like, oh, you know, like blah blah blah, nag. Instead, I get this. Oh, okay, cool. Well, I'll just find my own way home, and you leave now so you can get to soccer. Sure. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a good sign, you know. So, and I say, hey, you know, are you sure? So it probably wasn't gentlemanlike, but that's the type of person Cleo is. She got herself home, very independent. So I think, look, to answer your question, it wasn't let's do this business together and then we'll figure out, you know, how to work together. We already figured it out and let's do this business together. So when we get home at the end of the day, mate, you know, our most common question is, even though we've been like at the club together and whatever, is this: how was your day?
Good and
because
bad.
We have our own shit. No, we have our own shit. I don't even know what's going on in her day. She's got her jobs. I've got my jobs. I hardly see her in the club. Like it might be passing by like, hey, how you doing? Or whatever. And when we get home, what happened in your day today? So yeah. And we said this in our wedding vows, which very much maps over to your question as well, is I'll love me for you and you love you for me, but never ever will I rely on you.
Yes.
So we don't rely on each other. We're two separate people that add value to each other. We're not people that need each other.
Yes. And you know, in a business sense, that sort of expectation setting and clarity is one of the most important lessons I ever learned. Like with hiring staff, with doing deals with people, you just lay it out. Because otherwise these things come up later and they cause enormous problems, right? So if you lay them out straight away and someone doesn't agree, that's totally cool. But 100%. If they do agree, then off we go.
Exactly. And I think you've got to be able to back up what the standard you lay down. Like, let's say, for example, I turned around to Cleo right now and I said, look, actually, I want kids. She would say no, and that would be the end of Cleo and G. And we're married, super happily married, right? Like, I don't know a couple that's more happy more regularly than us. But if that happened, she would back it up. And that would be it. And awesome. That's it. So it's not just saying it, it's backing it up.
Yes. So you had the golden goose, it was laying some eggs,
Yeah.
and then you've decided to go elsewhere for another lease. I'm really interested in understanding the thought process and also the second lease you took up and how it went, because one of the most critical things I see often in sort of business failures, and I've done it to myself multiple times in our guide, I explain it. You get the thing right the first time, and for example, you're in a weird spot near strippers. It's dressed up in a certain way. You have a certain amount of trainers, whatever this formula is, right? And then you end up, for whatever reason, going somewhere else. You're in a new area, different fit out, more trainers, etc., etc. So in essence, the model where you're charging people a membership plus, like for personal trainers, stays the same, but the entire like environment of the business changes. And I've seen multiple businesses fuck up, particularly because they don't understand that that's like having a business model that stays the same doesn't actually mean when you change everything, the model, the entirety of the model stays the same. So in that kind of context, really interested to hear about the second.
So I would say a couple of things. Number one, it's so important to have business people in your life that you trust. It is so important to not just do shit and have an ego like, oh yeah, this is going to work. I'm just going to go do this, and be stung with 20 lessons that you mistakes that you just don't need to be stung with. If you drop, shouldn't be stung with it. If you drop your ego and you go hit someone like you in this program that you're doing up, or for me, it was like, you know, my mate Tommy, K-Man, Ro, the people that I've talked to you about before. So the first thing I did is I went to them, like before the change, and said, this is what I'm looking at doing. Hey, Tommy, based on this gym, that, because just to give some context, at that George Street stripper studio, it was just personal training. We didn't do any membership.
Okay.
So it was just one-on-one personal training. And one of the biggest appeals to doing this and what would happen is the clients that did PT with us also had gym memberships, just not with us, right? So they would come, they'd do that. Yeah, for sure. So they would like do PT with us, and then they'd go to Good Life for their normal gym membership. That was like half of the client base because we didn't have a membership. So what do you reckon? They would come back from these big gyms, they'd come to us, completely different experience. And they'd be like, I'm not going to my normal gym. You know, I come here, I feel comfortable here. For whatever reason, they're not going, you know, they don't feel comfortable, whatever. So where that like wedging the gap came was, we've got 130, 140 personal training sessions a week we're doing at the moment. What about which is about 90 clients. If we had those 90 clients and they just became our members, they'd pretty much pay for the extra in rent anyway. So now let's change the model to not just being one-on-one personal training, but we're going to have a membership as well.
Now,
so
did you talk to them first and sort of like gauge the feeling? Run any tests? No.
Zero.
Okay. True.
It was a surprise. And the reason we didn't is, from my experience, even if it's good change, people don't like change.
Don't like change. Sure.
So I'm not going to ask for permission and do market research on something that I'm extremely confident is going to work.
Okay.
I'm going to do it, and then they can believe in what we've done when it's created. And I know that's not everybody's model, but to me, it's like if I believe in it and I know it's going to work, even if I've approached my mentors and my business experts and whatever, 100% of the time I'm going to back myself and not give a fuck about someone else's belief in me in comparison to Cleo and I's belief in ourselves.
But maybe you're
and you know what?
A rare being. You know, there's a few
potentially
people it's basically like blind optimism, and there's a few of us with it, but not everyone, right?
Yeah,
there's unwavering self-belief.
And don't get me wrong, we spreadsheeted, especially Cleo, we spreadsheeted the numbers, financial forecasts to the max, multiple meetings with our accountants we love.
Worst case
scenarios. So there's a huge amount of worst case scenario and research that went into it, but no, it wasn't going to be based on someone else's opinion. So look, I think that gives some context. So from there, I had a mate, or have one of my best mates, Tommy, who had just in Auckland gone from a studio to a full-size gym. He had just done it, right? And he did like 3 kind of major, in New Zealand, right? So he had just been through that transition. So there was probably 3 major things that he really fucked up, right? Still all worked out in the end and they have a great business, but huge fuck ups. One of them was the negotiation of the lease, right? And the terms that were stipulated. Number two was being ripped off by builders, right? So the builders come in and say your fit out's going to be too. Amazing. It's a thing. It is an absolute thing. So 2 is being ripped off by builders. Like for example, they quote you $200K. It ends up being a $500,000 fit out, which is, I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't too far away from that. Third thing, right? Sorry. The third thing is the financing of the equipment. So, and how you do that. So with those lessons that he kind of passed on to me, I chatted with K-Man predominantly about, you know, the forecasting and the model. From that outside support, plus Cleo and I's internal belief, plus the spreadsheeting of the worst case scenario, it all made sense to do it.
I literally just ran a video on that because I'd had 6 buildings before in my previous business. So I've done a lot of fit outs, lease negotiation, whatever. And when you're doing any kind of business that has retail, like the lease and well, the ongoing lease repayments and the CapEx are the 2 biggest costs you're ever going to have ever, except for your staff, basically.
That's right.
Right? So you need to work and put everything into getting the best possible deal period ever in history, because every dollar you don't get, you're never going to get back, right? And you don't understand that until it's too late.
I can't agree with that point enough. Like, it is one of the most important things you can possibly do. Like, I mean, put it this way. In our previous site on Elizabeth Street, which was our second move, right? We got our first site about 164 square meters, our new site 334 square meters. So quite an upgrade. And in our first site, we were paying 56 grand a year rent, and the deal we negotiated for the second site was 80. In a way better area on fucking Elizabeth Street. Right. So, I can't agree with that enough.
Same thing with, when I was doing these videos, I filmed like the first site, which is incredible, and the second site, which is maybe 75% as good. The second site cost is almost half. And it's a bit like the stripper situation. If you make it a destination or you put some serious effort into it and you understand your market, you're a million times better off taking the lower cost base and working at it instead of just copying this 12 grand. And I was talking to a friend about it and she was like, oh yeah, but it's only I can't remember the difference for the year, but let's call it 20 grand. I'm like, but you understand that means we have to do twice the amount of massages per week to break even. Twice. Like, it doesn't seem like much as in total volume, but it's double the amount of clients we need to see just to break even. And I was like, how does that
was the size of the place, was the size similar?
The same, like both 40 to 60 square meters, for example. It's just a bit nicer spot. But like 100 meters difference on a street or 150 meters, I mean, like whatever, man.
Exactly. And then anything you make over is going to be more profit.
Exactly.
You know?
Anyway, can't harp on it forever, but can't express how insanely important that is for this kind of model.
100%. So we, look, it's so funny because I remember when we did that, it was such a big move. Like, the feeling of going from that first spot to the second spot was just, well, it's a different model. It's not even replicating what you know already works. You know, it's a different model, bringing on more trainers. Huge other bit of advice I'll give people who are opening their own business, like a service-based business, is pick the building company correctly. Because the guy, his name's Clint Bellamy, he's an extremely good friend of ours. He was in our wedding party, right? He works for a construction company in a high up prestigious role. And to have him, to know you're not getting ripped off, And to put his blood, sweat and tears into our fit out like it's his own, that was a game changer, mate, because a fit out that would have generally cost us 180 grand plus, we got away with doing it. You were at our old club as well. That was a $92,000 fit out, dude.
Yeah.
That's a $92,000 fit out. It looks like a $250,000 fit out. The reason why is we had the right contact. So don't go to fucking Google and look up fit out companies. Make sure you speak to people like you, me, other people that have been through it. So you can find out who you can actually trust.
Yes, 100%.
That's another big thing.
So the second site that you had, how long did you have it? How did it go? I mean, I know the answer, of course, but
Cool. So 5-year lease instead of our original place, which was a 3-year lease, because we knew it would take a bit more time to grow into it. It was really weird initially, man, on like the first 6 months, because we went from just personal training to now having a membership. But to be honest, we thought a lot more of the people that were doing personal training at the first site would quickly snap up a membership straight away, but they didn't. To be completely honest, our marketing probably wasn't great. Like, it was a rush to get that fit out done. We didn't do any pre-sales on it. Like, there was heaps that we could have done so much better, which we didn't do. We weren't doing any Facebook ads. Man, our whole focus was just going into, because when you're moving a gym, you can't have a day off, because every single day you're closed, it means that somebody's not training. So they go and find another fucking personal trainer or a gym. So every bit of our focus, to the extent, right, with that fit out, on that last week of the fit out for Elizabeth Street, our second site, Cleo Clint, that's the builder, and I think we did 5 nights straight of all-nighters, to the extent we were like, on day 3 of not sleeping, I was throwing up while laying vinyl with Clint in the pool room area. Literally, he would go and have a quick
Not to be recommended.
Like, bro, but we didn't have, like, you've either got time or money, right? We didn't have the money. So we put in the time. Like, we had opening night on the Friday night, right?
Yeah.
And I drove to the Big W near our house to get eskies to put drinks in, and I had to whip home because we had forgot something at home. I pulled into the driveway at like 4:30 p.m. and I fell asleep in the driveway of our house, and the opening party was at 6 p.m.
In the car.
In the driveway. Man, I hadn't slept for fucking 5 days, without exaggeration. So I fell asleep, and then I get Donna, Cleo's mum, thank God, is leaving our house, clicks the garage to, she didn't even know I was in the car. She clicked the garage to open it at 10 to 6, 10 minutes before the opening party is. I fucking grabbed the esky. I'm 10 minutes late for our own opening party because I fell asleep in our garage. Like, because the fit out was that hectic, we didn't put any time into the building of that club. So it probably took a bit longer to build initially than what we would have hoped. But our goal was to have 400 members there, because that's what our sweet spot was for the profit we wanted to make.
Yeah, the end goal.
400 members there was profiting $500,000 a year after all expenses.
Yeah.
Right. So for us, we thought that's a solid goal.
Yes.
So yeah, we got there. There's a lot of, things happen down the track, but learning, but mostly an upward trend like this, as you can imagine. 5 years down the track, we have over 400 members, and we're doing 380 personal training sessions a week, which is pretty hectic.
More than double. So when you were doing that transition or planning that transition, did you sort of know how much cash you had at bank to survive? Like, you almost knew to the day, that you had to open, or else we're fucked.
Yep, we knew, we spreadsheeted everything. So there was 6 weeks worth of cash reserves that we needed to get our first 40 members.
Yeah.
Right. And then we break even in the new spot. But also keep in mind, that was based on paying rent, and we negotiated 6 months rent free. So you also give yourself some leeway. But how Cleo and I have always done our budgeting is we factor in rent, even if it's not there, just to put yourself in a bit, we pay the rent in virtually another account, just to pretend like it's there, kind of like you should do with tax.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because for the most part, everyone's going to get some form of incentive to go into their retail space, and you can use it in all sorts of different ways, right? You can do fit out, You can do rent abatement. You could just do basic rent free, whatever.
That's
and
right.
It kind of just depends on your personal situation, like your situation as a business, right? As to what works best.
Exactly. So yeah, we were there for 5 years. Probably the biggest change we made to our model over that time is we changed all of our trainers from subcontractors to full-time employees. That was probably...
That's really interesting. I've never seen it before.
Either have I. So that was, I reckon, to date, the best business decision we've ever made.
Yeah? Okay.
Ever.
Expand. Let's go. Tell me.
So we were doing a percentage-based model, which was still different to a typical gym where trainers pay rent. So how it worked is we kept 60% of the... Sorry, we kept 40% of the income. The trainer kept 60% of the income. And then when they hit a certain point, they would go to 80% of the income and we'd go to 20% of the income because overall they're bringing more. So both the pieces of the pie are higher, right?
Yeah.
But they were just so, and initially that was still really different to a normal gym and created a better culture because people looked after people's clients when they're away. You know, there was still vested interest in the business. People worked together better. So it was a better model, but there were still so many flaws in it. For example, not all the trainers necessarily were paying themselves super, right? That's pretty important. I don't like, you know, I won't speak on behalf of the trainers, but I dare say that it's a possibility that even if ours were, that there was a possibility in the future they wouldn't. But also, are the trainers paying their own tax or are they getting behind on their tax? If a trainer is sick or they get injured, what happens to their sessions, right? Like they still have to do the sessions to get their percent, right? So also, if you actually have 100%, if you have a look at the legality side of things, if you've got, and I think a lot of gyms will run into this in the future and get stung by it pretty hard, but if you actually have a look at what's required to have a subcontractor, it doesn't make sense that trainers in gyms are subcontractors and not employed. They have to wear the uniform, right? There's opening and closing hours. Like there's a lot of things from a legal perspective that highlights you should be paying your
full-time.
That's exactly right. And I think we'll get to there in the next few years where there'll be a big crackdown on that. So there was a lot of different things, but understand this for a business decision, right? The only two salaries Cleo and I were paying were ours, which was about $60K a year each at the time. So you go from $120,000 worth of salaries to backing yourself in a decision that automatically in week 1, 600 to 700K a year. So that was literally like, we knew it, that was a do or die moment. We're either going to do this and it's going to fly, or we're going to do this and we're going to go broke.
Yes. And I mean, just like off the bat assumptions, but I do want to hear absolutely like why and how it's worked. But right, so you get all the buy-in. So a normal subcontractor, they're not going to put your gym on their socials or work super hard for you guys.
100%.
We know that if they go away, the other trainees aren't going to get their sessions. They're going to be pissed, most likely leave. You're not going to be able to rely on subcontractors to ensure that they uphold the quality. The list is going to go on, and I want to understand the list. Okay,
so all of those things you said, but even more, but see, I think when you look at it like that, you only look at it from the business side. Like you only look at it like, what does all that mean for the business? But the other thing is, our trainers, as you know, Jock, they're unicorns. They're not fucking normal personal trainers that you pick up off a Seek ad or coming out of college. Or I would pick any one of our trainers over a trainer that's worked in a gym for 10, 20 years and that's Mr. this and Mrs. that and has a bodybuilding this and fucking powerlifting that and triathlon. I'd pick any of our trainers over that because they believe in what we do and they're invested in the vision. So even more than what you're saying in those points of, you know, secure in terms of like branding and marketing and also product product care, your systems, making sure they're being followed. Even more than all that, what the salary option did is it created a growth opportunity. Because how Cleo and I have structured it is every 6 months, our trainers get a review. And if they've performed to a certain level, they get a pay rise. And I would go as far as saying it's extremely rare that we have a review catch up and somebody doesn't get a pay rise. Because obviously we're growing.
Let's say they don't.
If they don't get a pay rise, they can either stay the same or it's all spreadsheeted. It's based on the performance, right?
It's just transparent.
Like completely, everyone sees it. Like to the extent where the other trainers see the other trainers' numbers come through every week. Like it's completely open. And then if there is a trainer that's not performing, they get a pay deduction. To date, it's not happened.
Really?
Like it's literally not one person's got a pay deduction. Wow. People have left, by the way. They've finished up and moved on, but not a deduction.
Yes.
Usually if somebody's not going on the upward trend, you got to ask yourself and themselves some questions on what's actually happening there anyway. Because we've got no lack of leads. We've got no lack of people joining,
So regarding the hiring process, then you guys have really strong expectations that you set. You got the culture and you do all this kind of stuff. You must have meetings with people that want to be trainers that just sort of realize the expectations and they're just like, this is not for me. This is not what I expect.
100%. Or not even meetings, more like phone chats. Meetings take up too much time now. Like you just lay it out in 10 minutes over the phone and you get a feeling if somebody's into it or not. Look, roughly it would take between 1 and 3 months for somebody to come and trial here to become a trainer.
Yes. And you can sort of see if they fit or they don't. And
where usually, generally the model in the fitness industry is hire quickly, right? Fire slowly.
Oh, fire slowly.
Not in fitness. Well, think about it. If you own a gym and you make money from paying subcontracted personal trainers to work there, right? If you can pay if you have 30 working there that pay you $400 a week or 300, or you have 10 working there that pay you 300, what's better? 30.
60.
So why the fuck would you sack them? Why would you fire them?
Sure.
Where with me and Cleo, if you've got 10 people you're paying a salary, or you've got 8 people paying a salary, well, that's 2 more bloody salaries. So it completely changes. It completely changes the positive pressure, I call it.
Positive pressure.
What I was saying before, which is such a huge thing. So now what we've created for our trainers is growth, a strategy. They start on 50K a year. That's our starting for everybody. They start on 50K a year, and then you get a review. You can go to 55, and then you'll be 57, then 60, and then 65, and then to the extent where our next step is when you hit 80K a year. We are discussing this with our accountants at the moment on how we'll do it, but there's going to be a profit share option.
Overall gym profit share option.
Correct. So they won't be, it's profit. So they'll take a percentage of the profit, right? So for the key performers that have been with us for a long time, because you have to have been with us for a decent amount of times, we're earning 80K a year salary, and then they'll trigger profit share. So my gut says when all of this comes about, a trainer with us on profit share, they'll be earning 100K plus, right? It's pretty fucking great for, I've never heard of it, right?
Not many trainers doing that unless they're famous Instagram sort of ones.
This is it. And they get their 4 weeks a year holiday, they get their superannuation, but also, you know what happens? They take ownership over the business because now what happens in the business and the bottom line of the business affects their pocket, which I fucking love and Cleo loves. So that's the angle we're going in. But with the subcontracting model, you could never have done that. So all of the stuff you mentioned, 100% correct. But from the other aspect, for Cleo and I, what does it mean? Why would we do that? Well, man, we have people we like because we genuinely love like our trainers, you go and hang out with them as a mate. So you've got people who you love, plus you help them make it rain financially so they can buy property and have an awesome life and live fantastic. And then, you make enough profit, you can definitely, cut up that pie to be some pretty chunky amounts. So
it's about ego and greed as well, right? I think the first book I ever read about employee ownership was Maverick, a guy in Spain. Anyway, you can look it up. But it's so excellent, and it's something to really consider of course, once there's full trust built with people and you do all the legalities correctly and you understand how that model works. But if you're trying to build a business to support a really great life of which you can envision and you can forecast to get there, there's no reason under the sun that you wouldn't do that, because it relieves the pressure and the stress on you guys. It makes, as you said, the people that you love happier, and the list goes on.
Mate, and another great bit of advice I got from K-Man, right? He said, never ever increase hassle for not much of an increase in profit, right?
Of course.
Like there's no point of tripling your hassle for this much more profit. So that's often sticks in my head.
Well, with that time, you could do something else way more impactful that might not even be in that business.
100%. You know, I can probably step out of here more and grow this business, start talking to more corporates, which means the people with the profit share that have invested interest in the company make more money. You know what I mean? Like, I think it all comes down to trust and making sure, obviously, all of your contracts are built in a way where you protect the company, because ultimately that's good for the people on profit share as well, because they want protection of their company too. So yeah, man, that's where we're all heading at the moment. And I would say that was the real game changer. Put it this way, Joel, here's one for you, right? We were doing 190 sessions a week before we implemented the full-time employee model. Within 1 year, we were doing 380 sessions a week with the same amount of team.
Trainers, yeah. It's nuts.
Figure that out, mate.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I can't do the maths in my head. Not good enough. I have to ask my partner
virtually,
to do that.
we over doubled our income.
Yes. Yeah.
Our gross turnover.
Yes.
Wild. With the same amount of fucking people.
Yes. Crazy.
Crazy, eh?
It is crazy. So
yeah.
It went well. Clearly, when I was at the gym, it was bursting. In fact, it was fucking annoying, to be honest. On Saturday mornings, I was in the corner, literally in a corner by myself.
I remember.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess I am the dark horse of the gym anyway, but and I'll accept that. And I think you guys have accepted that.
Oh, mate, so I love it.
We just move on.
But you know, Jock, it's a good point there, because you're a dark horse in your own way, but that's what makes our gym so unique. People come, they're allowed to be themselves. We don't try to force them in being anything else. Just do you. And as long as you're not a negative prick, then stay. Mate, I sift people out from joining all the time. All the time, I'll have like someone I know that just won't enjoy us and we won't enjoy them, and I just influence them to go away. But we have strange, like, it's unique members here, you know?
That's actually a really interesting point that I hadn't thought of, and we used to do it too, because we were really strong on culture and our expectations and everything. Like, one bad egg especially in like sort of like a membership service-based people around model, can just ruin everything. Just one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
you know, my saying, it's not worth the $54.50 a week.
Totally. It's not. Totally. It's not. Yeah. Cause we used to do that. I mean, we used to be very selective. Maybe we used to only take on 1 of 5 people in our business, but that's a really interesting point. And we do have one of the templates we've got, which is about like understanding which customers are the most profitable / also trouble, and firing your worst customers, which is a really interesting concept in itself, but it maintains, most importantly, that standard and quality of what you guys are and what you represent.
For sure. And the culture.
Tracks those, and then the lifetime value, like the people who come stick around for way longer and they're not trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
100%, mate. Like to the extent I'm here a lot in our club, mate, I want to hang out with people here I like. Do you know what I mean? Like, it might sound selfish, but you come through the door and, hey, Jock, how are you, bro? You know what it's like what's been happening. We have a great chat. That adds to my day. It might sound super selfish, but the people that come here, I like them. Like, and that's a beautiful thing about our model, where people invest a bit more to get a lot more, is you're really not attracting the ones that just want to pay $9 a week to be disrespectful, leave shit everywhere, not wipe up after themselves. Like, you're just not attracting that market.
No.
It's not a bad market. I just don't want it.
No, that's right. I totally get that, and I fully agree and respect the like a segue on the wiping, right? So you were bursting at the seams. You opened like you signed to go into this new club where you're at now, which you can tell us about, size, etc.
Yeah.
And then there was COVID, and this is going to be sort of like the last part of this. I'm really interested to, like take us on that journey and that COVID journey, because I stuck with you guys in that and I saw some things, but really interested.
I'll take you through. So it's pretty dynamic. It's the first time I've been, I suppose, interviewed about it, right? So it's really going to be cool to share. So like you said, bursting out of the seams of the second club now, very similar feeling to the first studio we had, where you know what it was like, man. Like you could hardly move there at the end, which was awesome. That's the position you want to be in. Again, we had an option for 5 years, which we did think about, like, do we just extend here another 5 years? We thought, nah, what's really taking off in Elizabeth Street was the classes. So we're going to move to a place where we can also have a class area. So our last club, about 350 square meters. So we thought if we can have 450 square meters, we can add a class area and we can make this insane place where it's awesome strength training area, but great class area as well. Brisbane City, for some reason, all of the places around about 400, 450 square meters are just shit. Like they're old. There's not a nice vibe. Like the fit outs will be hectic. So
that's the size, not the price, right?
That's the size, yeah. Yeah, the size, about 450 square meters. It was hard to find somewhere. Like, you know, when you go in and you feel it, like this could work, we just weren't feeling it. So then we go into a place actually where the old Pure Health clubs used to be on Queen Street, which was about 800 square meters, right? And we're like, fuck, this is pretty awesome. Like this is way too big for us. We can't do it, but it's fucking pretty awesome. And, you know, we put in an offer for half of the space, or 500 square meters of it. So there'll be 300 square meters that they could let to somebody else. Essentially, like the deal wasn't really working. We kind of got the real estate agents were, you know, fucking pathetic, like weren't getting back to us. Do you know what I mean? Like we're putting in offers and we're not even hearing if they're a good offer. And then Cleo and I go away on a little like date weekend to the Sunshine Coast, right? And somehow, I can't remember how it was, we get in our head, hey, if we did take 800 square meters, what would we do? Like, what would we do if we did do that? And then we come up, like, this romantic weekend ends up being like fucking full brainstorming, which made it more romantic anyway, because that stuff makes you horny. Like, you know, doing this big goal setting. And then, and then, so we pretty much come back from the Sunshine Coast after 3 days with this full game plan on how we could do something a lot bigger, which meant we can start looking at different sites and different real estate. So then we get a phone call from a real estate agent. He says, look, I'll come and show you through this site. I don't think it will work because they, you know, want someone to take 3 levels. And it's way too big. It's about 1,000 square meters. So, but come and have a look. And we're like, yeah, cool. So we go and have a look, and long story short, we end up getting interested in, not like at the front of our building, there's one that's right shop front. It's called Rolls. But then there was an optometrist, correct. There was an optometrist in the building, which was called Eyes Matter, and they were finishing up. So I said to the real estate agent, well, if they're leaving, can we take that and then we'll build up instead of taking Roll out the front and going up? Is that a possibility? It's like, oh, you know, yeah, it is, but you'd have to use the lift. And I said, well, that's not going to fucking work. We're a gym. Like, we need one point of entry. So we negotiate to be able to get internal stairs built. We negotiate a great deal. The leasing executive, Rory, who's actually a client of ours now, was actually fantastic to work with. And we put together a stunning deal to the extent where we're paying less per square meter here. And you know what here looks like, it's 5-star, in comparison to Elizabeth Street. We're
That's
actually
nuts.
Paying less per square meter than George Street.
That's nuts.
Right? And the whole entire fit out, we didn't put in $1.
Yeah, that's the go.
Because it was all done through our incentive, right? Plus we got better terms, we are more rent free, like It was just a cracking deal.
Yes.
And our current site is 696 square meters in our tenancy, but including the lift lobby, the amenities that's built into the building tenancy, it's about 760 square meters, our current site. So yeah, so really our model from Elizabeth Street to here has stayed pretty similar, except there's more classes and awesome classes.
Yeah.
We run 30 classes a week, where back then we just ran one a day or a couple a day.
And the growth is approximately 40 new members a month?
40 new members a month. Because we're city-based, often you'll have people moving out of the city for jobs, for work, etc. So we'll get roughly 5 members to spend, which means they'll come back per month. And then we'll have around about 10 cancellations, because it's very rare that they're not liking the club. It's more so they don't work in the city anymore or something like that. Their contract's finished.
25, 30 new.
Yeah, 25 to 30. Awesome. Yeah, it works really well.
What's the upper limit of the capacity?
It's a really good question. So I would say, just based off old school gym talk, is 1 member per square meter. And we have about 750 square meters.
Yeah.
So, but we run a lot of classes, so it allows for more. I would say about 750 to 850.
Yeah, but you're nailing it at 750, 850.
Yeah, 750 members. You're $1 million profit a year.
Yeah, that's so good. All right, let's finish up. I want to understand COVID and what happened. How did you guys survive? So what did you do? The works burger, bro, because I was offered digital stuff and training in the park and shit. And I said, nah, fuck that. I'll just keep paying you because I know what it's like going through rough times, but you guys just do your thing.
So I'll tell you, we were open here for 12 weeks, right? And then we got government directive that we had to close our business. We got 16 hours notice, right?
I came in 2 weeks earlier, right? And I said, dude, I think the gym's going to be shut down soon, right? You better be wary.
You did.
Yeah.
Yep, and it was in the back of our heads. Yeah, a couple of weeks you said that, so you were right on the money. So 12 weeks we were trading, and before we were closed down, we were fucking flying. We were having months of 50 members joining. We had a month of 60 members joining. People were loving it, because it's so unique, and you know what it's like. It was just flying. Muay Thai especially was just booming, which is kickboxing. People were loving it because we introduced that. So it was pretty full on, because we had this fucking unicorn golden goose that was just holy shit, Cleo, it's working. You know what we wanted to happen? It's working faster than that. Then 12 weeks into it, boom, you get 16 hours notice, and they say on a Sunday, and they say, look, you got to be closed by 12 o'clock the next day. Here's where it gets really messy, right? So at that time, Cleo's in London visiting her sister because her sister was having a baby. So Cleo's in London. For that week when COVID went rampant, even before we were closed down, it was probably one of my most difficult weeks in business, because I'm getting 20 emails a day from members cancelling, suspending, calling me, freaking out. Are you closing down? We're getting a lot of feedback. You guys should close down because of how serious this is, even without the government directive. And look, the fact of the matter is, from what everybody was saying, everybody had a slice of truth. We have nurses that are members here. They're afraid they're going to get inundated with sick people. I see where they're coming from. We have people here that say, oh, come on, don't be crazy. You guys shouldn't shut down. You're so clean anyway. I see where they're coming from. I could kind of see where so many different people were coming from. But the reality was that Cleo's overseas, G-Banger, or me, I'm getting absolutely, inundated. And obviously the team is worried, are we going to have a job to come back to, which is natural. And then in that, I don't know if you remember in that report, they estimated around 3 to 6 months where there would be forced closure.
Yeah.
Right. So we're kind of looking at the worst case scenario. We could possibly be shut down for for 6 months. So a couple of things to be completely transparent. Our rent-free period was still going, which was a massive savior, because if we had been paying rent, look, based on the building that we're working with, they probably would have been really helpful because they have seemed to be great. You know, a really good building to be a part of. But we're lucky because we weren't paying rent at the time. But still, we had a fuckload of other expenses. You know, you over double the size of your club, you're paying close to $1 million a year in wages. You don't know about JobKeeper at the time, do you? Like, JobKeeper wasn't a thing when they announced that. So then anyway, literally we close at 12 o'clock on the Monday. I hold a team meeting on that Monday with our team. And then pretty much I remember the speech. It was, guys, this is war. Like, consider yourselves a part of war right now. Because, oh, by the way, I didn't mention this. Cleo and I opened Olympia on the year of the GFC. And also I saw what that did to so many big companies back then, that I had a lot of mates that own big companies, and I saw them just get absolutely like fucked. So I said, look, I've been through the GFC myself and been hit pretty hard with my own properties and stuff I owned. I know this is going to be at least as bad as that. And one thing the GFC reminded me of was like a little war. I feel like this is going to be a big war. So you pretty much have to choose, like, do I want to be a part of this war?
Yes.
Because if you don't, then this would be the time to leave and not be a part of this unit. And if you do, then strap in, because it's going to be fucking messy. So there was no, and there was no like motivational talk. It was, this is fucking war, because we didn't know what was going to happen. So literally, we get the government directive, and then I speak to our app developer. His name is Andrew, and literally on that Monday, I think it was, that, or maybe it was a few days before that, but we work out that we're going to be running online virtual classes, right? So literally within 24 hours of coming up with the idea, online, no, it was on the Thursday. It was on the Thursday before the announcement, which came on the Sunday. So on the Thursday, on the Wednesday, I speak to Andrew and come up with this fucking Olympia Live Facebook classes, one every day. We're going to do these sessions. So we come up with that on the Wednesday. Our first one goes live on fucking Thursday, right? So Thursday and Friday, Olympia Live begins. We did one on Saturday as well. We find out that we're closing down on Sunday. And then literally we transferred a third, including yourself, a third of our client base became Olympia Live members. So we probably, our income generated was, instead of being zero, we had roughly, well, what was it, 4 to 5K a week coming in from Olympia Live, which the week before didn't exist, which pretty much meant we were, like, the way I looked at that is we were halfway towards paying our wages.
Yes.
Because the most important thing, and I remember I text you this, the most important, because you text me just out of like goodwill and said, how are you, man? How are you handling everything? And I text back, mate, so far so good. We're paying the team. Because for Cleo and I, that was our number one thing. We just want to pay the team.
But one thing that I do want to say is, you know, about this whole culture buy-in style thing, right? Is because I've been through my own wars as well in my last two businesses. Not the same like GFC style wars, but when I knew this stuff was happening, and this is not about me being a nice guy or whatever. It's like, because I understand, and because also I have buy-in. I like you guys as people, not as a gym. And when that happened, I just messaged my trainer Jake, and I was just like, "Yo, man, just keep me on the full whack. I don't really care, and don't train me, and just spend your time doing whatever the fuck you got to do." And this is not my expectation at all. You guys just did this, right? And then we like finished COVID. And for however many weeks I paid for full whack without getting anything, he just added a second session every second week until that is paid out, right? And that's it's just something it's just something to think about as someone who like goes to small businesses such as yourself and someone who could go through war. How you want to treat people is so important when you're going
100%.
through rough times, right?
Man, you're exactly spot on, to the extent where like, it's pretty like crazy, because what happens with the direct debit companies is legally you have to stop all debits. So to get anybody back on like Olympia Live or outdoor personal training, and we're roughly doing about 170 outdoor personal training sessions a week by the end. So literally Olympia Live, we had 250 members, outdoor personal training, 180 sessions. That didn't exist 2 weeks, but like
Neither
that was just,
did. Yes.
It just fucking from nothing to pivoting to that now existing. Those two things really obviously generated enough income for us to
survive.
And you know what? We came out ahead in the end. Go fancy that with the government shit.
You know, I remember when I had to have that war conversation with my team in the last business, and we weren't in the position you were because we were already fucking ourselves by that time. And it was like, yo, here's the deal. If you want to stay, you're not getting paid for the next 3 months, and we're going to give you equity. And if you can't cop that, that's it. And it was really incredible. I mean, 3/4 of them were like, no, we'd stay. In the end, we didn't go ahead with all of these different things. It's another story. But that kind of buy-in, that kind of leadership is like so vital.
Yeah. You know what? This is probably like, gym owners are going to hate me for this.
Good.
But COVID was one of the best things that happened to us. Like ultimately, it brought the team closer together because the people that, you know, fucking treat it like it's their own, they, you know, they put their bodies on the line. You saw a different side of the team. We've come back so hungry. And also we had 11 weeks outside of the business to reflect on our business and work out what we wanted to do better. When do you ever get that when you own a business?
That's right.
You never get that, right?
Yes.
So, and I won't say too much, but you'll see things roll out over the next couple of months, which is what I'm talking about right now, which no one knows is happening, but you'll see some pretty cool things roll out. But one thing I just want to say real quick is in that carnage time of a week when I was like getting inundated with emails, the team were worried, like obviously your parents are calling you, like, are you okay? Like, you know, you're fucking hearing from people you've never heard from in 20 years and they're saying like, are you okay? When they don't really care. They just want the inside scoop. So you're getting absolutely fucking inundated with negativity to the extent, Jock, when all this was happening and Cleo was in London and obviously I was on the ground here by myself. She moved back to Australia, obviously to Brisbane, like came home as soon as she could. But then I had to live in the Hilton away from Cleo so she could self-isolate. So literally for like a month, Cleo and I couldn't see each other when all this happened, right?
That's
so
nuts.
I can't quite explain in like articulately enough how carnage that was.
Yeah.
Biggest advice I'll give to people is number one, detach. Because for 3 days, I fucked it up. For 3 days in those early stages, I'm replying to every email. I'm picking up the phone calls. I'm replying to messages. I'm looking after people. Mate, I was fucking going nuts in my own head, and I'm pretty good with pressure. So I just said, fuck this. I'm not replying to any emails. I'm not picking up any phone calls. I'm actually going to remove myself from the club for a couple of hours and sit my fucking ass down in the Hilton. First thing I did after I detached, I sat on the bed of the Hilton where I was like staying while Cleo was in ISO. And I just thought, what the fuck are we going to do here? You know, and I just thought out a plan, pretty much a new business model, which I went over with Cleo. But you know what I did? And this is a huge thing, is I reached out to those same business mentors.
Yes, exactly what I was going to say.
I call K-Man. Hey, K-Man, brother, like, let's go through this. You know, he obviously had a multi-million-dollar company with his wife, Rowena, when the GFC hit in fitness education. That was a big thing for any business. So I say, K-Man, I'm going to take you through the whole thing. What would you do? Give me your advice. Have I fucked things up? What would you do here? A few things, you know, he's like, gee, think about this, think about that. If it gets to this I won't go in too much in depth. It's some private conversations, but he says, do this, do that. Like, I like what you've done there. Maybe think about that a bit differently. So again, I just detach, then I go to those people that I know that genuinely want you to win. I call Tommy, hey bro, like this is going on, and I listen to the immediate circle of influence that genuinely care about you and they want you to win. And I got their input. That was one of the best things I did. So detach and then hit your circle.
On sort of like an ending note, that's in fact exactly the same thing I did with Little Tokyo. When as soon as I knew the shit was hitting the fan and it was getting spread around the room, I literally took 3 days off and I just told the team, like they knew what was going on. We did like the war talk, whatever.
Yeah.
3 days off and I just went for walks and cruised around on Lime scooters, calling all the people that I trusted and respected and been helping me over time, and just talked through every scenario ever about what could happen and so on. 3 days, full clarity, come back. This is exactly what we got to do. The whole turnaround thing, same thing, exactly the same.
Man, yeah, it's invaluable. And you know what we did every week, Joel? We sat the team down at the team meeting and we told them the numbers. We opened our books.
Yeah.
Said, guys, this is our turnover this week. This is the expenses this week. This is how much debt we're in. Like not debt, but this is our money out of our business account that we've lost this week.
Yes.
And this is how we're going to get it back.
Yes.
So literally we opened our books, and that's part of trusting your team. We're
the transparency.
So fortunate, mate.
That's like
and you can only do that if you have a team trust.
It's the Jocko Willink.
Mate, we had people,
right?
100% it is one of the best books on leadership I've ever read, if not the best.
Yeah,
we had people, I had trainers coming up to me saying, hey, G, I know I can go and get, income from X business. So if you need to lay me off or stand me down just for like 3 months while this is over, I'm happy to help the company that way by not taking an income, going and getting an income I know I can get as long as you'll employ me and train. Mate, that's fucking not that's unheard of. So for us to have the team that we have is just, that is something I'm super thankful of. Super thankful. The company isn't the company without the team we've got. So. Does that answer?
Yeah. And congratulations, of course. And thanks so much for your time. That was really rad. I actually super enjoyed that.
Thanks, brother. And one thing I would say is let's do this again in roughly 3 to 4 months, because there's going to be some new installments, mate.
Okay.
Can't give too much away.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, brother. Chat to you soon.
Bro. Cheers.
Cheers.